Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to quarterfinal week of the Vodacom United Rugby Championship. The Vodacom Bulls side that will take on Benetton is as follows. Gerard Steenekamp at 1, Johan Grobler at 2, Wilkelo at 3, Ruan Vermaak at 4, Ruan Nokia at 5, Nizam Kar at 6, Ulrich Low at 7, Cameron Hanekom at 8, Emrose Papier at 9, Johan Vossen at 10, Kedley Arons at 11, Harold and David Krill at inside and outside centre, Sebastian de Klerk at right wing at 14, and Willie Leroux at fullback. Impact squad, Akafana Meva at 16, Simpiwa Matanzima 17, Francois Kloppe at 18, Reinhard Ludwig at 19, Janus Kersten at 20, Keegan Johannes 21, Chris Smith at 22, and Sergio Peterson completing matchday 23.
Jack, maybe just to start off, Kanan, I see he's out. He said earlier in the week it was just bumps and bruises, the situation.
Yeah, look, it's not more than bumps and bruises. I think it's his finger going for surgery today. So, I mean, it's one of those things, you get a plate or pin. I'm not sure how bad it is. When you get surgery, we'll see. Hopefully it's one of those that you can strap it 2-3 weeks' time and play. But he won't be available, obviously. I mean, I think I'll take it that next week he's probably out as well. I can't see you get that surgery today and play next week. So, for the box point of view, I hope it's not too serious because you want to make sure he's ready for the RE series as well. But he's gone for an op today, and I think only when they open it up and have a look how bad the fracture is. So, it's obviously his index finger. So we'll have a look and see, which obviously influences his passing and, broke his pinky as well a couple of months ago, and he played with it. But I think the index finger is just something we need to get fixed.
Is that something that happened in the Sharks game?
Yeah, it happened. It happened when he made that line break and got tackled on the try line. Remember when Chichuka got a yellow card? As he fell, I think his hand or whatever must have hit the grass there. We had the ball in his hand, and obviously carried on playing the whole game with his finger like that, which obviously a little bit brave of him. But when we got back to the hotel and he looked at it and started swelling, and doctor said, "Look, I think we must get it fixed."
And do you have more information on Marco's injury?
Yeah, Marco, I mean, he would have been able to play tomorrow if it was the last game of the season. So it's one of those, I don't want to, I just think he's also, to be fair to him, he's also in the World Cup squad and he's also in the Springbok squad. And, I don't want to now take a 50-50 risk with a poor guy. He breaks down and then he's out again as well for the international series. Especially now that Jasper's not playing in those first couple of games, especially now that Kwach has come back from an injury. I mean, there's a lot, I suppose, in the back of his mind he won't talk to me about. But I mean, if I put myself in his situation, I don't really think it's fair unless he's 100% right to put him back on the field.
Brilliant. Jake, just on Marcel, how long is he still?
Yeah, he'll be back next week. So, I mean, if all things go well, I mean, and I sort of sound like I'm planning for next week, Brent, I don't want to get caught in that rut. Because we've got to win this weekend first. People talk about the whole time about where's the final and semi-final and is the final going to be at Loftus or FNB. I just need to be sure that, those sort of things we can only worry about once we qualify to play there. Yes, people have written about we came second in the log, which means we continue to win. We get a home semi-final. But I think the message I've given the players is we don't start worrying about where we're playing finals and, semi-finals next week. Because we've got to do the job tomorrow against Benetton.
How much is the Rainbow Cup lesson?
Yeah, that's still in a lot of ways. I'll tell you what, it's as a coach. I mean, they won't forget that because people thought we should win that. And the other thing is that we were 50 points ahead and we won 50-something, 35 the last time we played them. And then for that 20 minutes, they were very good. So sometimes, I suppose, when you look at those games, it's funny how those lessons probably help us with our prep. So, I don't have to say, be careful, they can play because they've seen it. Be careful, they can beat us because they've done it. All I got to do is just reaffirm that with them in my team talks all week and just say, look, guys, just remember. And the nice thing is most of them were part of that. So they beat us in the Rainbow Cup. They beat us convincingly in that Rainbow Cup. They played really well in that 20-minute block when we had them dead and buried. So, I mean, we know we still got to get the job done tomorrow.
Jake, with the absence of Van Staden, who plays the ball on the ground, does that influence your selection? It's always been that toss-up between Grobler, Wyckoff, and Melville starts. Johan Gobler get the nod because of his ability at the breakdown?
Well, toevallig, what's toevallig? I can't even talk English anymore. Coincidentally, it is Grobby's chance to start because I've rotated them. And so it's worked out nicely because I think Grobby's is good on the ball. And so, it's not one or the other. I mean, I'm quite comfortable Akka starting as well. Akka's done really well off the bench. But I mean, Nazam, interesting stat. Nazam's probably been the most accurate at the breakdown for us. He hasn't given penalties away at the breakdown. So what we lose maybe with Marku is really physical over the ball, and he does tend to give penalties away because he has a go at it. I mean, Nazam accurately has been better for us as an open side flanker. So, who knows? Maybe, things happen for a reason. Maybe he's playing for a reason. The style we play against Benetton, his skill set, the fact that he's accurate at the breakdown. Maybe it's getting the horses for courses right without me even having to make that decision.
And how disruptive is it to lose 2 World Cup winners when you're getting into the business end of a tournament where you need people who know what the pressure is?
It's interesting because I would have said this time last year, gee, can you believe it? We've lost 2 World Cup winners and what do we do now? And at the beginning of the year, you sat and you asked me questions and I said, this year we're going to change our squad. This year we're going to rotate. This year I'm going to make sure I don't rely on the same players all the time. And so Sebastian has played many games, so he comes in. Nazam's a Springbok. He's played many games. He comes in. It obviously takes away the fact that you've lost Kainan and Marku, both World Cup winners. But I'm in a much better place to tell you that, that this year I'm more comfortable that if I have to make a change or someone's not available, the guy who's been playing, I'm sure is going to do his job anyway. That's the confidence I get from the way they've trained, the way we've changed the team. And the results speak for themselves. Those guys have done well when they've played.
And lastly, for me, the last time you played Benetton, free scoring, high scoring game, how different do you expect it to be when you go to the championship rounds?
Yeah, well, it must be the same. Again, I'm quite happy to sit here and answer questions because I remember when I started here, Bulls, boring, Jake Ball, all those things, And now all of a sudden, 85 trials broke the record, most points scored in a season. So we've evolved. The club's evolved. We haven't gone away from the fact that we can score more tries. We haven't gone away from the fact that our scrum is incredibly strong. I mean, the Sharks demolished Leinster, and we demolished the Springbok front row last week. So without, again, I've been asked this question many times. Chris asked me, people ask me, where's your scrum? What's happening to your scrum? Are you not worried about your scrum? And now we get to the playoffs. Scrum strong, scoring lots of points, good record at home, opportunity to play twice at Loftus in these 2 big games, rotation of our squad, depth in our squad. So, I mean, as a coach, I can't be sitting here being, other than very, very happy and very content where we are as a group.
Jake, Sergio Peterson didn't play that much this year, and then his choice rather than Devin Williams, for example?
Devin Williams still injured.
Oh, okay.
So he's still injured, still with that ankle injury. But then, Sergio hasn't played much. Again, he was in his 8-week leave so that he can play Currie Cup. So that's part of why he hasn't been around for a bit, because he needed that 8-week leave that he needs, which is part of the agreement. But also, he's the one guy that's won a URC. He played against us in the final for Stormers and won. So it's wonderful to have that kind of guy coming into your group in the playoffs. Because as a URC winner, he just brings something else to our team as well. So, and I mean, I can't answer other than he would have been in the mix, but his 8-week leave also cuts him out of that role for a couple of months. And, now he's back and fit and rearing to go. And he must add value. I mean, he's quick. He's one of the quickest guys in our team. And he's got the experience of winning the URC.
Sorry, just a little bit off the subject. I know you guys are down in the Cape for a warm-up for the Currie Cup. Your Currie Cup preparation going at full steam, regardless what may be happening or not happening. Yeah, well, I mean, as far as I know, the Currie Cup starts on the 6th of July. We play Province away. And we can only, as I said, only plan according to those things, not until it changes. But Currie Cup's going well. Planning is going well. We've rested, 99.9% of the guys who need to rest for Currie Cup. So we, whether that rule comes in where you still have to rest guys, we could kick off on the 6th of July having rested all our players, because that was
what the agreement was initially.
Thanks.
Jake, I've always wondered what goes into sort of your thinking as a coach when you playing a team almost back to back as it is in this case. Obviously, you beat them the last time, but what's the thinking in terms of how to sort of come out on the right side?
Well, the interesting thing, I've had experience of that. When you played the olden days, and I'm being around the olden days, European Cup or Heineken Cup, or as it is known, Investec Cup now, used to include one part of the tournament was you played the same team home and away on consecutive weekends. Obviously, the sort of pools have changed now, but in the old days, you would be drawn in a pool and you would have to play one team on one weekend and then the next weekend away to the same team. And that makes you think a lot about how you're going to prepare, because you play the same players and the same strengths and weaknesses. So you've got to sometimes box a bit clever on how you do things the second time, because they expect something. But at the same time, I'm going to answer it by saying this to you, Sim. You still got to do what you do well. It's not a gimmick thing. So I think people think it's a gimmick. You come up with a play, but one play is not going to win you the game. You still got to do what you do well. And if I look at what we did well against them, we scored almost 60 points against them. So, there's no reason why we don't back that we can score points. And then from that game, is making sure that we tighter on defence. We let them slip. They needed 4 tries and they went for it, and they asked questions of our defence. So I would say the answer to your question is, what do you do is just make sure you do the things you do well. That would be the message, is focus on your good points rather than worrying about, what they're going to do the second time.
I was going to ask about the 35 points. How much do you think does it concern you how much you think they may have learned in terms of how much it can damage you?
Well, again, I'm going to answer it by saying I know what I learned. I learned that I pulled the trigger too quickly on my bench. So that's what I learned, and I can control that. And also the other thing which I learned is it's a quarterfinal, and I'm not sure whether they'll take the 3 or take the kick to the corner. So, and I can't control what they're going to do. Maybe they take the 3 this week and they don't worry about 4 tries. So, which means that the game shape will be completely different as well. But I just say to myself, I know they got 35 points, and some of it was through the actions I had, and those actions I can control.
Jake, you spoke about Sebastian. He's for me one of the most improved players that you've had in a long time.
Yeah.
And he just took to the Bulls type of play like a duck takes to water.
Yeah.
How do you personally feel about it?
Well, Simon, let me say this to you. Firstly, he was here as a junior.
Yeah.
And we loaned him to the Pumas on the basis he was going to come back. And again, Pumas did fantastic work with him, but we always knew that if he needed game time, he would get game time, and we knew that there was something in him that we wanted to get back at the end of his contract with the Pumas. So that's the first bit of information that his growth there, and the fact that he played made him so much. He was devastating in the Currie Cup as well. And he's quick. The one thing which is really an interesting stat, there's a Bronco test, and a lot of guys talk about Bowden Barrett and what he ran that Bronco test in, and Hugo Keenan for Ireland Bronco test. He also runs it close to those 2 athletes. And that means his repeat efforts, his work rate, that sort of thing, is the things that you see are maybe the flashy things or people see, but it's incredible to see what his work rate's like. And that's why he's such a great outside back for us, because he can literally do repeat efforts. He can tackle, get up, run back to the other side, catch it up and under, kick it long, chase it to the other side. It's not just, I think he offers us something that's a little bit different to the other wingers, in that his Bronco and his work rate is so much higher than any other outside back we've got.
Turning to your scrums, there's major improvement. It's a given. You've just alluded to the fact that you scrummed the Springbok front row.
Yeah.
What's the secret over a period that you had to work with? Because
we'll go.
Yeah, obviously.
140 kilograms of Afrikaans boerenvlees. Yeah. That's what it is.
Yeah. And a guy like Simpiwe also, he sort of backs off and takes on of what happens when he comes from the bench.
Simon, I'm joking when I say it, but Wilco is he's an exceptional scrummager. Take nothing away from Gerard, who I thought had a really good game against Vincent Koch on the weekend as well. And Grobbies, who scrummed against Bongi. But then if you look, I think generally what's happened, which is common sense, I think, when Wilco scrums against you at training session and you Simpiwe, I mean, you either sink or swim. And I don't think that you're going to get a game where you're going to get as tough opposition as you are against Wilco at scrum time on a Tuesday or a Thursday. And that inevitably what happens is the whole group improves. And the one thing I've said, which amazes me about Wilco, you know, often players who are good at that don't really do it often. In other words, what I'm saying is they like to let other players go in at scrum time. He doesn't miss a scrum. You know, you actually have to physically say, okay, you swap. You know, he'll stay there the whole session because that's obviously what he wants to get better at and pride himself on. So yeah, I mean, he's I think the reason we say it, and it's not, you know, nice to single out a player, but since his arrival, the mere fact that our scrum has improved is because of the effort he puts in at scrum time. And then you can imagine, I mean, he scrums against Gerard, then Gerard swaps with Simpiwe, then Simpiwe swaps with Dylan, and he'll stay there and scrum against all of them. And so therefore he has to, because he's getting a fresh guy all the time, you know. And I said it. I'm not sure if you guys have picked it up because I've said it to the team. But he's playing 65, 70 minutes a week, and that's not bad for a tight head prop. A lot of people think tight head props after 50 minutes you rotate them. I mean, he has the capacity to play and has played 65, 69, 72 minutes for us because of the fact that he does his job. So yeah, scrum is, you know, obviously Van has worked really hard. Andries has come in and added something. I think everyone's a year older. Reinhard Ludwig's a year older. You know, Ron van Mark's a year older. You know, Grobby's a year older. I think that also helps because they're now maturing into older athletes as opposed to these young guys we started with 3 seasons ago.
Thanks. Coach, just what has been the message to the leadership group in terms of them managing the game, different decisions? What has been the message to them?
Just we control what we can control. Basically a summary of what I've said to Sim. You know, we can't worry about what they're going to do. We have to do what we have to do. And we just need to remember, as the question Brendan asked me, you know, they're a good team. So we mustn't go there thinking we're just going to run out and go over the top of them. You need to understand they would have learned lessons from the last time they were here too. I mean, I'm sure, you know. And so we must just control what we can control. And that it means we got to come prepared tomorrow to make sure that we've given ourselves a chance to win the game.
I mean, how excited to see how the group sort of progresses through this playoff stages in terms of that overall growth of the team. How excited to see?
Well, you can hear in my press conference now. I mean, this is what we wait for, and this is now the playoffs. There's 3 games left, and there's 80 minutes times 3, and you can be champions. 2 of those games you play properly can be at Loftus. I mean, you know, I ask you guys, if we had started the season and said we're going to come second, play Benetton in the quarterfinals at home, and another semi-final at home, I mean, which club wouldn't have signed that as a takeoff? But you know, I reserve as I said to you, we're not talking about semis and finals and all that. We now have created an opportunity for ourselves to be where we are. We now got to be mature enough and determined enough to make sure that whatever we've put in the 18 weeks actually counts in our favor the next 3 weeks.
Sorry, Coach, I might have missed this over the weeks, but Mornay Smith, is he injured?
He's gone for operation. It's gone for operation on his neck. It's like a little release the disc. It's like a little thing. The same thing Akka did at the beginning of the year. I'm going to need him for the Curry Cup. And so rather than that thing flare up, I've decided it's time now for him to go and get it done. And then he would have had his 8 weeks leave and he'll be available for the Curry Cup, which means he'll get game time. So at this point, we've still got Kuta available to us, and we've still got Job van Rooyen available to us, and we've still got obviously Francois Kloppe. So, you know, with 2 weeks left, I'm hoping we're not going to call on any other props between now and the end of the competition.
And I know you said you don't want to look beyond this week, but should it get to a semi-final, you mentioned that you might have Marcel back. What type of fitness character is he? Is he one of the guys that can slot back in, or would he need to come off the bench or just try to, work himself into being able to go full tilting?
Look, he's played at the high level. He would know that if you play Ulster or Leinster, I mean, he's played at Ulster, so he'll know what he needs to do. And let's first get through this, then we'll make a decision on what we need next week, I think. And if he's needed to start, and we think that's what's needed to win the game, or that's the best for us, then we'll make that decision.
Jake, you spoke about the growth of your squad, especially at the Bulls, but the other unions also is going to reduce a lot of the under 20 players in that this year. How do you intend keeping them close by and not losing them for the future?
Explain to me, Carl. You mean?
You've got
yeah.
about 20 players that apparently is not going to get contracts or extend their contracts into the senior squad.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
So how do you breach that gap?
Unfortunately, Carl, with the situation as it is now, and I'm talking now for the Bulls, you can only contract 55 guys. And when we have great junior sides like we do, we can only keep X amount of juniors. Now, if you consider our team, the youngsters we have are Reynard Ludwig, Cameron Hannekom, Jan-Hendrik Wessels, Kainan Moody. I mean, whether they played senior rugby or been part of our group is immaterial. They still qualify for that junior age group. Jeff van Heerden. We can't, I mean, that's already 5 guys I've mentioned to you that automatically come into our senior squad. It's highly unlikely we can keep another 5 juniors this year and another 5 juniors next year, because there's 2 things that happen. One is, firstly, you have to lose a senior player to fill that 55, so someone has to leave. And the most important or the most difficult thing to juggle is it must be in the same position. So let's use an example on scrum halves. Let's say next year Caleb Abrams, who's played SA Schools, Stephen Nell played SA Schools, both in the under 20s now, both under 21s next year. But we have Emmy, Bernard van der Linde, Keegan, and we have Zach. So, I mean, you can't have 6, you can't out of 55 have 6 scrum halves. So what has to happen is, in order to keep one of these 2 or 2 of these, you have to get rid of 2 of these guys. And, it's not like where you just pay this guy off and he goes and finds another contract. It's got to be when he finishes, he can come in. So it's got to be position specific as well. So what I'm saying is, it's not unique to the Bulls, but I'm talking for the Bulls. We have had great junior sides coming through. I'm at the point now where I've got enough juniors. I've got enough. In other words, where the process we've started with the Van Heerdens and the Cameron Hannekoms and the Jan-Hendrik Wesselses and I don't need to find another SA Schools hooker. I don't need to find another SA Schools. I'm talking about, obviously for the under 20s next year, that's a different story, under 19s. But I'm talking about taking one of those SA under 20 guys into my senior squad. Firstly, I don't have a place, and secondly, I've got too many guys in that age profile for me to bring another 2, 3, 4 in. So I would think, and I'm going to answer it by saying, I would think the way we would do it at the Bulls is the fact that our owners own Boerland. We're probably going to try and do a joint venture with Boerland and send a couple of those guys to go and play for Boerland until they come back like Sepp de Klerk from Pumas, seasoned, older, game time. And by then we can then bring them in as we shuffle the other guys who finish their contracts out of contract. But that's from a Bulls point of view.